Without further ado, I'd love to welcome Marty. Marty heads up Infinite Edge. He's the founder there. So who's Marty? Marty, tell us about yourself, mate.
I've got quite a lot of experience in this IT game. Been doing it for a long time, but it's a real passion of mine. I absolutely love it. I love the people side of it even equally as much, maybe sometimes even more than the actual tech side of it, which sometimes hard to believe. But it's just, we really make an effort, and it's one of our main mottos and the way that we do things is that we make technology really human and simple, because it can be unnecessarily overcomplicated, as we all know.
And Marty, you love a chat, which is amazing. So
I do love a chat. I can talk underwater, so it's I'm not really the typical profile of a technology and cybersecurity guy.
Well, that's good, and that's probably what makes you really successful in business, and the fact that you're able to explain all this tech stuff in simple human speak. So what are we talking about today, and why should everyone devote the next 20 minutes to listening to me and Marty talk about security? So we're going to bust some myths, paint some scenarios that may crop up out there in the world, and then some key steps, some really actionable stuff that everyone can take in terms of lowering your security risk. Everything is hackable. And you say expect the best, plan for the worst, and prepare to be surprised along the way.
I did take that quote from someone, but the everything is hackable. That's something I do say a lot of, and what I mean by that is that people often have this blind faith in IT, and when they do have security in place, cybersecurity in place, they think that they're good, they're golden, they're not going to get hacked. But the reality is, unfortunately, no matter how good we are, and it's not just about us, by the way, and we'll get into that later on as well. Yep. Everything is still hackable. So you probably will get hacked. You probably still will suffer a data breach, but it's all about cybersecurity is actually about risk mitigation. Awesome. So lowering your risk and then knowing what to do when you do get hacked or breached.
Yep.
The term itself, cybersecurity, can be quite polarizing. I think people think it's because it's cyber, it's all IT, right? But that's actually not the truth. So cybersecurity, it actually it encompasses all processes in a business, and some of them aren't technology related. So the real risk is the human element. It always has been. It always will be. We are the weakest link, because we can make mistakes and we can be socially engineered, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what that is and what that looks like. But essentially, your team members are the ones that are most likely to cause you a world of pain by doing something, even accidentally. So sending the wrong email sending an email to the wrong address, simple as that. CCing your entire database instead of BCCing, things like that are actually considered data breaches. It's definitely humans that we have to watch out for.
All right. Well, let's start out by busting some myths. So this first one, cybersecurity is not just an IT problem. What do you mean?
So as I said earlier, it's a lot of people think that it is. The term itself kind of makes you think that it is, but it's actually for it to be successful and for your organization to be on top of it, it needs to be driven from within. And you need to look at all aspects of it, including, like I said, the team members, your team, and are they trained enough? Do they understand what to look out for? Are they aware of all the risks? So it's not something you just go, hey, my IT provider is going to look after our cybersecurity. You actually have to manage it as a business, and it has to be driven from within. Otherwise, you're not going to get on top of it.
Cool. So an extension of that, it's not about keeping the hackers out. You sort of
That's right. So touched on that. And so really just actually, like I said, managing it, owning it internally, and actually driving it from within. I talk about appointing a cybersecurity champion, just like a fire warden or something like that, right? Having someone who actually owns it. That's cool. And manages it. Yes, there is an element of IT, of course there is, but but you don't want to just hand it to your IT guys and go, okay, I don't know about it. That we get that a lot. We go, IT guys are across it. I don't actually know what they do. Yeah.
So you need to ingrain it in the culture, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And that's it has to be part of the culture, and it starts from the top down. A lot of the C-level executives, business owners, are the ones that are often the ones that are the biggest risks, because they think they're above all that, and they think, oh, my IT guy's got this, I can click on that email.
I actually heard that at a seminar. They're like, the CEO, any of the C-suite execs, they should not have any passwords in their life at all.
Yeah, they're the biggest pain points.
Cool. So then number 3, technology can solve all of your business problems.
We say this from a technology perspective because we're not just cybersecurity people, we are IT providers as well. But a lot of people think that they have a business problem and they think technology is going to be the silver bullet that solves this problem. And the same goes for cybersecurity. They think that, oh, okay, we've just implemented all of these security, all these checks and measures, all of this great stuff. We're fine now. We're bulletproof. We don't need to worry about any of this moving forward. And our guys, our teams, business is protected, our clients protected. That's actually not the case.
Number 4, Macs don't get viruses.
So a common misconception. So, and last year, Mac viruses outnumbered Windows viruses by, I think it was 3 to 1. So they are different. Let's make that clear. They're often not things like ransomware and the really scary stuff that you hear about in the news, but they are still dangerous. And they can be simple as things like adware, which means you get pop-ups in your browser and you can click on those, and that might end up giving away giving away your credentials or something like that. Yep. And that's obviously a big risk. So every Mac should have some sort of security software antivirus on it.
Now, software updates are not about vendors just trying to make more money out of their clients.
We hear that a lot. So, I don't want to update my Mountain Lion because I love it, and I don't like the look of Monterey or something like that, right? Or I hate Windows 11 because it's the toolbar's in the middle and I don't like that. It's stuff like that. So. Yeah, don't like change, but the reality is, yes, there is change, and yes, sometimes it's not in your favor. However, the vendors, they focus on these new products, and they only release, after a while, they'll end up only releasing updates and patches to fix vulnerabilities in the newest version. So if you've got older versions of software, then you are vulnerable because eventually it's unsupported, and then you've got huge risks to your organization.
Yep. Marty, I'm just a small business. I can do my own OT.
The reality is it's not your area of expertise. It's just like with your bookkeeping, you hand that off as soon as you can afford to do that. It's not a good use of your time. You're not an expert, so it's impossible. It's hard for us to keep on top of all these things, right? It's let alone you guys trying to do it. So by doing your own IT, you're also then essentially taking on the security part of it, which you probably have no idea about, even if you know enough to be dangerous with IT stuff. So it's a massive risk. And like I said, taking you away from what you do best.
And an extension of that, hackers aren't interested in me. I'm just a small fry. They're going after the big fish.
Yeah, this is another one we hear all the time. The reality is that they are, and it's because you have money. Simple as that. It's they don't necessarily care about your IP or anything like that. They just want to get paid. And even if it's a small amount, they've got hundreds of thousands of people they're targeting. They're happy to get paid. They'll move on to the next one. And so these are small business stats. Majority of the ones are there. 3 of them are. So essentially, like I said, small business are targets. 43% of all cybercrime in Australia, small businesses. Obviously, 33% of businesses with fewer than 100 employees don't take proactive measures against cybersecurity breaches. So that's, like I said, it's all very reactive, or they have nothing in place at all. 87% think they're safe because they've got an antivirus. So we hear that a lot, right? It's like that. That's people think the extent of cybersecurity might be just, I've got an antivirus. And the reality is antivirus software, they are reactive, not proactive most of the time. So all these new threats that come in, you're often not protected from it, and they don't protect you from data breaches and things like phishing emails, which I'll explain in a second. But and obviously $1 billion is a massive amount, how much it costs. We work with businesses that suffer financial loss as a result of these sort of breaches, and it's really, really unfortunate to see.
So this here, 1 in 5 people haven't heard of phishing, and that's not the process of catching a fish. What is phishing, Marty?
So phishing is part of what they call social engineering, and that mostly means that they're not even sophisticated hackers. We prefer to call them scammers. So they're sending out emails from what looks like a legitimate source. It might be a bank, it might be an energy provider, and it might be something like, hey, check this invoice out, or we need to verify your details. It takes you to a fake landing page, which some people don't spot. They put in their credentials, and bang, the scammers have your credentials, which means they can get into your account. This is a well-known scam that happened with a shipping company, a worldwide shipping company, a multi-million-dollar company, and they were scammed out of millions and millions of dollars. And essentially, they investigated and they got to the bottom of it. They found out that it was a bunch of Nigerian pirates, and they set up these universities in Nigeria to teach them how to do it. There's people doing shift work, just sitting there reading emails, and what they're waiting for is, so as I mentioned, they have a phishing attack. You fall for the phishing attack. They then have your email username and password. They get into your email and they sit there and wait. And they might have hundreds down, on the page at one time, just sitting there, manual labor, looking at these, looking for invoices. We've had clients come to us affected by this sort of scam. And what essentially happens is, once they're in, they see an invoice go out or one come in, then they'll put rules in place so you don't see the correspondence. They're then speaking to your clients as you, saying, hey, we've changed our invoice, our account details. Here's a new invoice. They doctor the invoice. Client pays them instead of you. They disappear, and you likely won't get your money back, because the banks it's an Australian bank account. They've got privacy laws. The banks, goes straight overseas anyway. Yeah. We've had clients lose as much as $150,000 in a scam like this, just from one scam. And we had a new one just recently where what happened was, they were in our client's client accounts, and they noticed that our client was sending large invoices to them. So they actually registered a domain that had one letter different to our client's one. Wow. Sent an email out saying, hey, we've changed our account details. They got paid. So that's a variation, and they keep changing it up just to catch it. So.
Yeah. So just hearing you talk through that, I'm like, there's probably a few layers of, more stuff that we can do just to improve rigor in and around that. Like, in that it feels like it's a pretty simple thing to do,
and that's what I was saying. It's not always technology solution, right? That could be stopped in its tracks by simply having a process in place saying, hey, if there's an account change by a vendor or a client, pick up the phone and actually verify it, right? It's simple as that.
What can we do? What are the prescriptions that we can do as business owners to stay secure, Marty, and stack the odds in our favor?
Yeah, so first one, as I said, it's review your SOPs, systems, standard operating procedures, or systems and processes in the business. Like I said, it's not all technology related. It could be that you have, like I said, pick up the phone to verify things like that. One of the scams that we worked with was basically the CEO sending an email to their assistant, and it wasn't them, saying transfer $150,000 to this account, and they did it. So, having a system in place saying, okay, you need two decision makers or something to verify these sort of transactions above a certain amount, things like that, right? And just working out, what's the process, if you do get breached, having something in place there, or saying, well, what's the process? Like, do we actually know what to do when it does happen? Because it does happen, and it will happen. So, really important.
Document that.
Okay, this one's a good one. So that's not a typo. That's actually a P, not an O. So if you guys go to that website, I encourage you to do that. You can even do it now.
Yeah, I'll bring it up on screen.
Yeah, chuck in, so you can, and it's safe to do this, by the way. So you can do, this is actually created by a cybersecurity expert in Australia. Yeah. If you go in, put in one of your email accounts, you can also do passwords up the top, as you can see. So a known password, not combined with your email account, of course, but it tells you that you've been involved in a breach, right? So what that means is there are known reported breaches, and it explains what happened and what was leaked on the dark web. It could be your credentials, it could be other personal information. If you find, and there's actually, these big companies get breached. So Adobe, Canva, Dropbox, they've all had breaches.
Yep.
And data's leaked. And so when you find out that you've been in a breach, first thing to do, change your password. Turn on multi-factor authentication. And as I'll mention that later on, but yeah, they're things you can do.
Cool. All right. So identify that. Then a big part of this is using a password manager.
Yeah, absolutely. So you should have everyone has to have a password manager. It's non-negotiable. You should not remember any of your passwords. That's just, that's full stop. So the only password you should ever remember is the one to get into your password manager.
One password.
One password. And that's it. Imagine how much free headspace you'd have for not remembering your passwords, right? It's liberating. So the reason you do that, so the password managers securely store the passwords, but they also generate passwords for you. So we recommend 20 characters, random passwords. And you'll never remember that. No. So that gets saved, and there's browser add-ins, so you can actually automatically put it in.
I've actually been signed out of mine. I don't have my master password entered, but had I had that, it would open up my full list of passwords.
Yeah, absolutely. And we recommend LastPass as well, but there are other ones. There are other good ones. And then there's also, we have a Teams version of that, so we can share certain passwords with the team, and it's just amazing because it just gets updated once. You don't have to sit there and worry about people going, oh, what's the password for that again? And you have to reset them and all that sort of thing.
That's right. Cool. Number 4, regular education. What's about this?
Yeah, look, it's really important. So, like I said, people are the weakest link at all times, and so how do we address it? We address it by education. So, there are platforms out there. We offer one for our clients where they can watch short, sharp, engaging. It sounds more boring than it actually is, but it's got a bit of fun. But they watch little videos and they do little quizzes, and we actually send out phishing simulations to them to see if they've been paying attention.
Wow, you're testing your clients, mate.
If they click on the wrong thing, guess who gets a tap on the shoulder?
Wow, that's awesome.
So, and that's really important because there are so many risks and they're always changing. Even educating people in the fact that you shouldn't use a password more than once. And the reason why you shouldn't do that is for the same reason we've talked about before. If there's been a breach, the hackers have that password, and guess what? Where they're going to try it? They're going to try it against your email account. Oh, wow, it's the same password as your Dropbox one, right? So they're in.
Yep.
So, so app security, absolutely. So that brings me to the next point. The hackers won't get in, or unlikely or less likely to get in if you have MFA. So multi-factor, two-factor, two-step, whatever you guys know it as, that stops people in their tracks. There are ways to even circumvent this. However, that requires a bit more sophistication, and most of these scammers are not that sophisticated. No. So if they can't get in, they'll move on to the next victim. So every cloud app that you use, turn it on. Because a lot of them don't turn on by default, but you can always just Google, how do I turn on MFA for Dropbox or whatever it is? Yeah. And then it'll tell you and it'll run you through it. And that's just do it. And also API integrations. Yeah. So you guys might have had situations where you sign up to something using your Google account or using your Microsoft account or using your Apple ID, whatever it is. So then that app gets permission to actually, access all sorts of things what you've allowed it to with that with your Google account or your Microsoft account. People then forget about that and they don't actually regularly review what apps have access to those accounts. So if you don't know what you're doing there, just ask your IT provider. But there's ways to find it just by Googling it too. So
so we spoke about software already, but hardware, even like older hardware devices, what's the risk there?
So massive risks in the sense that there are vulnerabilities. So even hardware has software. They call it firmware. You might have heard of that term. So, and a lot of the time, these things aren't updated. And so there's vulnerabilities in your router firmware, in your computer BIOS firmware, that sort of thing. So those things, yes, you can update them to a point, but even like as with software, manufacturers will stop supporting them after a certain point. So if you're running around with a 5, 6, 10-year-old laptop, you're likely at risk, right? And plus, you're not as productive as you could be either. It's old and slow. So
upgrade that laptop.
Yeah.
Domain health check. So this is an interesting one. Domain, like, you know, the domain and us sort of being in this space, it sits at the very top of the peak, right? And if they get control of a domain, then they got access to everything. They can reroute, they can do all sorts of interesting things. So talk about that, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of aspects to this, but just to make it really basic, there's certain records that you need to have in your domain, especially around your email, and there's 3 records in particular that should be entered. And we find that a lot of businesses just don't have those in there because it is a very technical area, and they do change these things regularly. So those records, what they essentially do is they authorize your domain. So what that really means is that no one else can pretend to be you and create and send emails on behalf of your domain, like scammers and things like that.
Yep.
And it also just makes sure that, you know, all the spam filters and all that know that you are who you say you are.
Yep.
You're more likely to hit inboxes, which is great for marketing.
Yep.
You also, you know, we have clients who come to us that even their regular emails are ending up in people's junk because they haven't got their domain set up properly. So, yeah.
Cool. Securing your devices.
So this is another thing that we don't see often, to be honest, when we take on new clients, and especially now with working from home, and that's the next point anyway. But essentially having some sort of device management software that's managed by your IT provider. Mm-hmm. And what that does is you can enforce certain policies, you can lock it down. You shouldn't have administrator rights, so you shouldn't be able to install things whenever you want. You just shouldn't. And yes, people are going to say, oh, that's annoying, it just holds me back, it slows me down. There are ways, and we have a way of doing this where you can actually control access when you need it. So give you access when you need it, and it's really easy to do. Doesn't really slow you down, but it means that if you don't have admin rights, you're not inadvertently going to install something either, which is what causes a lot of these problems, like clicking on the wrong thing, installing ransomware, installing a virus, malware, whatever it is. So just making sure that the device is locked down and you are, and don't use personal devices for accessing business information.
Which is probably an extension of point 9, working from home, post-COVID world, a lot of people working from home, logging on with home devices, personal devices.
Correct. So that's the thing. Look, you know, a few years ago, companies relaxed their policies and let people use their phones, use their computers, personal computers, and now they're reeling, trying to backtrack and change all that because you just cannot secure personal devices.
Yep.
You've got your kids using them, you've got family members, you've got partners, right? You're accessing sensitive information on a personal device here, and there's no control, there's no visibility. It's a massive risk for the organization. So
cool. And then finally, point 10 is documenting all this stuff, coming up with procedures, policies, making sure that it's you know, the team are aware of the policies in place.
Yeah, so I touched on it in the first point as well. It's related to SOPs, but having actual policies that are enforced as well, not just sitting there. A lot of people have a privacy policy. They never look at it. They just have it there. But review it regularly, make sure it's relevant, make sure the team knows about it. What's an acceptable usage for internet? You know, how do you deal with a data breach? What's the response plan? Who do you contact? All of those sort of things.
Well, and that's probably a good lead on to the next one, mate, which is about obligations. So different industries have different requirements. I know in the medical space, it's a lot more onerous.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that a little bit more, mate.
There's now a law called the Notifiable Data Breach Law. And you know, it affects businesses over a certain amount of revenue. However, if you're in certain industries, you're responsible, you're under that umbrella essentially. So anyone in healthcare, absolutely, it doesn't matter how small you are, you still have obligations. So it's when you're dealing with sensitive client information or patient information, and if that gets leaked, and if you have a breach, and that can be used for harm, that's considered a data breach, which you have to then report to the OAIC. And that's just the ombudsman in charge of all that. And if you don't, the fines are substantial. So, knowing what that is. And the thing is, this is really overwhelming for so many people. And I don't know some of you might be sitting here with your head spinning, going, I don't even know where to start. And that's okay. You know, there's so many businesses, in fact, most businesses, I would say, are in that position. But there are great platforms, like Cinch is a partner of ours, and they have an amazing platform, really simple, as you can see, nice, neat little dashboards. Essentially, it helps you work out what your risks are, and it actually helps you put together plans for your cybersecurity. They call it cyber fitness, which I love that term, to improve your cyber fitness. Absolutely. And you know, it doesn't solve the problem for you, but it gives you a plan. And,
you're still going to go out and solve the problem.
Correct. But it tells you
the problem is knowing what the problem is.
Correct. You got to know where to start, right? Because it's what you don't know, right?
Yep.
And then you can work with your providers, like your IT provider, your lawyers, to get it all sorted and improve what they have, a cyber fitness score, which is really cool, and gives you a score and your percentage, and you can go, okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting towards that magic.
100%.
100%. Well, 100%. I wonder if I'm not sure if that's achievable, but
no. I'm sure it's a moving target as well.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's actually a coupon. So if Marty was kind enough to put in this coupon, Haak1, HAAK1, will give you 1 month free access. Get in there, give it a crack. Marty and the team at Infinite Edge, they've got a cyber fitness health check. So if you bring out your mobile phone, there's a QR code here. You can go through this. What would happen next, Marty, once this form is submitted?
So there's 20 questions. It's not a whole heap, but it'll make you think about it. It has explanations there, things to consider, and essentially you'll get a score out of 100. And it explains what that means, and you'll get a copy as well. And then, if you have any questions about it, obviously you can reach out to us and ask us. But it is. Yeah, it's a bit of an eye opener, and look, I just wanted to reiterate what I said early on, and that is, I know this is overwhelming and frustrating for so many people and scary, but that's okay. I always just like to say, just start with one thing, because one thing that you did change and improve is already going to improve your cyber fitness. So, and then you just chip away at it, right? You're not going to be able to probably do it all realistically in one go, but having a plan is absolutely crucial, and saying, okay, over the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever it is, we're going to be doing all these different things, and we're going to get to a better cyber fitness.